A good apprenticeship can be the best start for anyone's career. A bad one is soul-destroying and a waste of time, energy, and lifelong earning potential. Using openly sourced material from review sites, education journals, national newspapers, and the UK government, we've put together an aid to critical thinking for anyone considering an apprenticeship with QA. This extends to any kind of course with QA or any of their associated institutions. So, who are the QA group? You'll see a rather complex and layered structure of companies. That complexity is there for reasons and not to benefit your education. Eventually the money, yours directly or from public funds, bubbles up in interesting ways and finds its way offshore. Some of the profit from your training literally does find its way offshore. It helps keep a billionaire's cartoony bath toy afloat. The super yacht, called Blue 2, same name as the disposable plastic razor, is one of two $50 million vessels that belong to QA's billionaire owners. They are the heads of CVC Capital Partners, an organization designed to make incredible wealth, for wealth's own sake. The yacht looks like it's AI generated, but it isn't. It's where your money is heading. While apprenticeships are through the QA Limited part of the QA group, the management set the tone, and so it's worth reading around to be fully informed, and QA Higher Education is a good place to start. We'll cover QA Limited apprenticeships a little later in this video. There's also QA USA Incorporated. We'll provide an overview of this as it affects QA's focus and investment, which impacts the quality of their other product avenues. There is very detailed feedback, often more than will fit on a screen, from clearly educated and motivated learners. You can feel the desperation and frustration from being held back and messed about. Look for yourself, the sources are public and the theme is consistent. If you download QA's Investor Relations Report for 2025, you'll see they have partnerships with all the listed universities. Some of the reviewer numbers are low, but the commentary is still informative. The overall ratings are worth noting. They are poor, and these are for established organizations and across the board. Something is systemically wrong for this to happen. QA's Investors Report mentions the financial benefits of having overseas students. See if you can find a happy overseas students review. The reviews from Roehampton are in-depth and unsettling. One former student claims that the class sizes have gone from 7 to over 1,000. Possibly this means from a handful of learners physically attending to suddenly hundreds attending online with no real chance of synchronous group discussion, a fundamental of adult learning. It would be very difficult for the course salespeople to sell 1,000 physical places, but for a worldwide virtual attendance this would be entirely possible. Maybe this is what the reviewer is describing. If anything even close to this student-to-lecturer ratio exists, the accepted adult learning theory put forward by Malcolm Knowles goes out of the window. It would not be a university, but just a years-long and very expensive webinar. We're optimistic about the future, as the world has always had its challenges and people have found a way past them. The real and applicable knowledge and experience gained during an apprenticeship will always be valid to the individual and to society. The providers of apprenticeships should realize their part in this process and not treat it as a cash cow. QA have a very expensive credit facility and shareholders that expect massive returns. As they'd been dominant for years, QA have become complacent, and suddenly there's a new kid on the block. At first glance there seems something very sci-fi about the multiverse toppling QA, but this is simply because QA's approach and business model has expected high returns from at best average quality. Often their training and apprenticeship results are abysmal. However, sometimes it's who you know as much as what you know that matters. QA have relied upon their existing relationships with organizations such as Crown Commercial Services to fund them. This is changing, and there is now scrutiny into their funding and approach. While the graphic from their 2025 investor report has been designed to not appear dramatic, a quick change of color and just look at the numbers hitting the deck. This is not a good trend, unless you're multiverse. The value that QA care about the most is EBITDA, and this drop is bad. Their business model is clearly failing, and they've a habit of resorting to desperate tactics, something they've done many times during their history. Let's have a look at what they've done before that's untoward, and also just some of what they're up to now that's equally dodgy. These behaviors are jeopardizing their entire business, and when you see what happened to KPMG Apprenticeships offering, caused primarily by QA's poor quality, then you'll have to consider another provider. Here's the relatively short but accurate version of one of QA's dodgy goings-on. It starts with KPMG. KPMG were never really an apprenticeship provider but put themselves forward to Crown Commercial Services anyway. Crown Commercial Services is actually a kind of company run for profit by people from the civil service. A surprising fact, the head of Crown Commercial Services, CCS, is paid more than the British Prime Minister. The civil service had a requirement for hundreds of apprenticeships, and so CCS said they'd help out and took a fee for doing this. They passed the work on to KPMG. KPMG took a cut and passed it on to primarily QA. QA made an absolute pig's ear of it. Ofsted woke up for a moment, noticed that it was a mess, and then barred KPMG from delivering apprenticeships. Surprisingly, Ofsted didn't bar QA and just made a note, despite the debacle, leaving them to carry on, with further at-scale, substandard apprenticeships being delivered. CCS, for reasons of their own, decided not to put any penalty on KPMG nor QA. Instead, they decided the best thing to do was get another huge chunk of money from the civil service and start a whole new contract up with KPMG, who then subcontracted out to QA again. Bear in mind that CCS have a 20% bonus scheme, and one question is, do they have to pay back bonuses if there's an epic fail on their watch? CCS have never been audited by the National Audit Office, but in their 2024 report, the National Audit Office stated that CCS were overcharging by £100 million a year. There is much more to this, but the short version is that CCS were informed by Trainx of issues with QA back in 2021. They refused to investigate further, and here is a quote from their email: "We have no relationship with the QA group." Clearly, they didn't look with a critical eye at all. Someone with even the most basic critical thinking skills would have noticed that they are entirely dealing with the QA group. The awkward truth being best avoided. Since then, CCS have thrown hundreds of millions of pounds at KPMG and QA and must have taken their fee. There's a particularly odd additional financial surge at the end of Civil Service Learning Framework Agreement RM 6145, the follow-up contract after KPMG were barred by Ofsted. Effectively, this was a 900% daily increase right at the end of the contract, when the spend should have been tapering or at least constant. An explanation is apparently being sought, right as we're producing this video. These events are the symptoms of ongoing unrealistic behavior and questionable competence, and there are many abysmal recent examples that should inform your choices. A risk, if this funding stream collapses, is that QA will most likely collapse too. In that case, the continuity for any apprenticeships is under question. Remember that as KPMG have already been barred from delivering apprenticeships, the risks are there and not purely speculation. Let's have a quick look at who's involved. You've already seen the $50 million yacht. You may not aspire to one, but how about a successful and enjoyable apprenticeship and career without having your time and money wasted? The yacht is not a symbol of that kind of success, it's the outcome of greed. Like building a golden ballroom or having your own private island to play about on. Sir Charles Mayfield is the chairman of QA. He seems to do well while totally lacking scruples, and his moral compass was lost overboard a long time ago. For example, he was marketing manager for Lucozade Sport in the 1990s. This career choice involved selling brightly dyed caffeinated sugar water to children. Liverpool Council banned it, stating that it was the worst offender for childhood obesity, tooth decay, and behavioral issues. It, from its components, was designed to be addictive. Mayfield knew this and carried on without even blinking. We've a video that describes his history in more detail, and it is an interesting study all of its own. Grab yourself an original bottle of Lucozade Sport, a bag of Skittles and some Twinkies, and see if you can sit through all 12 minutes of it. Some people do not fundamentally care about anyone else, and whatever his words, his actions communicate this. Watch the video, it's definitely an education all of its own, whereas your QA apprenticeship may not be. During COVID, Mayfield directed government agencies to QA's training courses. The idea was that furloughed workers would be able to benefit from training rather than being curfewed for 23 hours a day. QA had a second website that was undercutting the government purchasing, and Mayfield was aware of this. The Sunday Times spilt the beans. This is in the video. This behavior is about profiteering and was done during the COVID epidemic, the most difficult period for modern Britain since World War II. You'd think that a knight of the realm would have some principles, but no. In fact, there's much in the behavior of Mayfield that contradicts the Nolan principles. The process of removing an honour under the UK honours system is called forfeiture. On reading, it appears that no new laws are required. QA invited Mayfield to be chairman in 2017. Do you think that the graphic on their website to celebrate this union is wholesome? It was on their site for months. What about them filming the girl in the corridor at their Manchester centre? Still fancy an apprenticeship with QA? Leadership sets the tone of an organisation. We'll spare you the glossy controlled portraiture that Mayfield appears to be a fan of latterly. But make a quick visit to Shutterstock and you'll see some quite painful and at times odd, even meme-worthy images. Ironically, these are from the 2013 low pay debate. Ironic because he was drawing 6 to 6 times the average salary of the mainly female retail worker employees of John Lewis. He was chairman for John Lewis during this period. Any organization that has him as their chairman, and particularly if that organization is a service provider for education, should be entirely ashamed of themselves. We've already spoken with the one in question, and at the time of this video's release, it appears that Mayfield remains as chair. They seem to lack the dignity and bravery to disassociate. If you're a school using their software, ask yourself about your own stand. At least Liverpool Council had some bottle when it came to nurturing and protecting children. You may have noticed QA USA incorporated on the organization graphic. At the point of publishing this video, QA's venture into the US looks like an object of desperation. We've produced a video for it. In summary, it's a huge clickbait attempt and is disingenuous to our American friends. TrainX's The Empire Strikes Back video describes QA's approach. The short version is QA Group have been pretending to be a startup and have created a massive clickbait campaign in the USA. The reality is their product isn't sparkling and they are late to the party, but there's some humor in examining it. The real downside is that they are directing their energy towards this project when they should be working on the quality and honesty of their UK services. Some food for thought. QA have 2,000 course titles on their website. Their sales staff are allowed 3 days of professional development time per year. Which course would you choose if you worked there? Maybe you'd run out of time just reading the summaries. With so much sprawl, can their staff actually know their own product? If they don't, should they still sell to you? What's clear is there's quite a party culture and has been for over a decade. They reward their salespeople with party trips to places like Hvar and Ibiza for selling the most volume. The emphasis on volume means there's probably little incentive to offer true advice. So maybe the salespeople don't care any more about quality than their management and owners do. We've created this video out of disgust and concern. We don't sell apprenticeships, but an organization that does, should do it wholeheartedly and professionally. Instead, we have a focused portfolio of just a few courses that we understand the purpose and value of. We also understand the course content and can convey it meaningfully so that effective learning takes place and the engagement actually benefits the learner. We provide this service at a fair price and deliver it with professionalism. TrainX have the highest pass rates in the UK for the most popular project management frameworks and methods. We are also endorsed by Microsoft to deliver instructional best practice train the trainer courses to the worldwide audience of aspiring Microsoft certified trainers. We bring these techniques to our virtual and in-person classes. For career entrants, we have a small number of topics that are useful to anyone wishing to embark on a career in IT and related areas. These are not meant to be a substitute for an apprenticeship or for a university degree. They might, however, be an alternative where a person needs or chooses a shorter study period to gain worldwide recognized certifications without spending years and incurring student debt. More generally, our courses are of benefit to people who are already employed or experienced and require to add a particular skill to their established set. In either case, feel free to contact us to discuss your requirements. Anything we put forward will be based on our best advice and will happily provide a demonstration of how we deliver training to help you make your choice. For a conclusion to this video, we would say research carefully, read up, speak to the provider on several occasions, and then you should have true confidence in your choice. Reviews are not everything and they're probably not scientific, but when there's a clear trend, good or bad, then they should factor in your decision. A relevant and well-delivered apprenticeship or training course is definitely worth your time and financial investment. A good rule of thumb in life: if they've a super yacht, leave them to scrub their own decks. Thank you for watching this TrainX National Apprenticeship Week 2026 video. Subscribe for our latest content.